Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of On Attachment. In today's episode, we are talking all about jealousy, and in particular, why anxiously attached people struggle so much with jealousy. Now, if you are someone with anxious attachment patterns, you are probably very intimate with this struggle. It is really something that I'm answering questions on several times a week, every week, from students in my Healing Anxious Attachment course. It feels like a constant companion for a lot of us with anxious attachment patterns. And as we're going to talk about today, that makes a whole heap of sense because I think looking at the core wounds and beliefs of anxious attachment, jealousy emerges as a very, very natural consequence of feeling like we are not good enough, feeling like love can be taken away at any moment, comparison, unworthiness, fear of rejection. I think that all of those different expressions of our insecurity can often converge to create jealousy. And that jealousy can be really all-consuming. I say that as someone who used to really, really struggle with jealousy. It used to be almost crippling for me. And yet it was something that I felt so much shame around that I buried it. No one would have known that I was wildly jealous. It's not something that I necessarily externalized and voiced to my partners. It was just something that I carried silently, and yet it was so all-consuming. I would engage in all of the behaviors that we'll talk about a little more in today's episode. The social media stalking, the obsessive comparison with other women, stuff like that was just like par for the course for me. It was a daily struggle. And so I want to talk a little more about where this comes from, what sits underneath it, in a way that hopefully allows you to reflect upon your own relationship with jealousy from a more neutral standpoint. Because I think one of the really big problems with jealousy is that collectively, societally, we tend to have a negative judgment attached to experiences of jealousy. It's not an emotion that many of us feel positively about. And so I think we associate jealousy with like craziness or being clingy or being desperate. And so then when we experience jealousy, and maybe we experience it really intensely, we tend to shame ourselves for that. And that only makes it worse. It does nothing to help the underlying insecurities that are driving that jealousy in the first place. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And my hope is that you can walk away from today's episode with the ability to look compassionately and inquisitively at your jealousy. Approaching ourselves with curiosity is so much more fruitful than just labeling ourselves as bad and going, how can I stop being so jealous because it's ruining everything? As I always say, when we kind of heap shame and blame and wrongness on top of an experience we're having that's already really challenging, that invariably makes it worse and bigger. Now, before we get into today's episode, a couple of quick announcements. The first being my 28-day Secure Self Challenge is coming back. I'm going to be running the challenge kicking off in mid-June, and Monday the 16th of June will kick off. It's a 4-week challenge all about building self-worth. And as we'll talk about today, so many of our relational struggles, whether it's jealousy or comparison or anxiety, all roads lead back to self-worth. And that's really the core of my teaching across so many different topics, is that when our relational patterns are so other-focused, which they are in anxious attachment, we tend to focus so much on the relationship and the other person, and we become so preoccupied with everything that's going on out there. And that is almost always to the detriment of our inner relationship and our sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And rather than trying to solve those issues in isolation, I'm always telling people, focus on you, build up your sense of self-worth so that you don't feel so vulnerable to what's going on out there, so that you don't feel like you are just treading water and clutching at anyone and anything that might make you feel better temporarily. So all roads lead back to building self-worth, and that's what the Secure Self Challenge is all about. It's a really nice, short and sweet, not too content heavy way to reset, irrespective of whether you're currently in a relationship and feeling a bit stuck, whether you're just out of a breakup, whether you're dating and feeling like you're spinning out a bit. It's just a really nice way to come back to center, get really clear on who am I, who do I want to be, how do I want to show up, and be really intentional about all of that and really flipping the script from the inside out. So if you're interested in that, I'm offering super early bird pricing for the next few days. You can sign up to the challenge for just $97. And that includes the challenge materials, a pop-up community for the 4 weeks, as well as 2 live calls with me. So it's a really great value offer. And you can sign up for that by heading to my website, stephanierig.com, or the link to sign up is also included in the show notes. Okay, so let's talk about anxious attachment and jealousy. Now, before we get into the meat of this discussion, I do just want to offer a quick disclaimer or caveat, and I always like to say this before going into any discussion of things like trust or jealousy, because I think sometimes people can say, oh, I don't know why I'm so jealous, or I don't know why I struggle with trust. And then they go on to tell me about several experiences where trust has been breached or lines have been crossed in their current relationship with their current partner, and yet they're making it a them problem. So I just want to frame that I'm not so much talking in this discussion about jealousy as a natural response to inappropriate behavior in your relationship or boundary violations in your relationship. I think that is a different conversation, and it's not one that we want to be solving as a, I just need to stop being so jealous. I need to make myself fine with things that I'm clearly not fine with. Really what I'm talking about here is where jealousy has followed you throughout your life and you know that it's something to do with your inner relationship. And maybe it's even when you're not in a relationship, you struggle with jealousy, you are very envious of other people, you struggle with comparison a lot. All of those things signal like this is a self-worth problem. And so it is something that I can really get curious about in terms of what is it in my own inner relationship and my own subconscious beliefs about myself and others that is producing this experience of constant jealousy. So I think for anxiously attached people, jealousy can feel like a minefield. And I think it can be useful when we're talking about jealousy to distinguish between jealousy as in I have to be possessive and protective of what is mine, and jealousy that can take more the form of envy in that I want something that someone else has, or I'm envious of what they have. And I think anxiously attached people experience both of those things. So you might look at other people, compare yourself to them, and feel less than and go, oh, I'm so jealous of them and what they have or what they are that I am not. And we can use that as a way to feed our stories of low self-worth, or it can be jealousy in the sense of like, get away from my partner. I don't trust that person. I don't want them anywhere near my partner. I don't want my partner interacting with them, looking at them, having any sort of proximity to them at all, because I feel the need to protect what is mine against those perceived outside threats. And I think that, as I said, anxiously attached people probably grapple with both of those flavors of jealousy. But it can be useful to reflect on, like, what's this really about? Is it me protecting what is mine? Or is it me wanting what someone else has that I feel I lack? And neither is better or worse there. It's just interesting always to go, what is this really about for me? And I think that maybe depending on the answer to that, the fix might be different. So I think there can be lots of expressions of jealousy for anxiously attached people. There's the comparison, there's the low self-worth, there's the fear of being replaced. So this sense that if my partner comes into contact with other people who I perceive as being my competitors, then they're going to realize that those people are better than me, more attractive, more confident, more intelligent, more charming, more whatever. And if given the opportunity, they're going to want them instead of me. And so I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be left. I'm going to be replaced. And so jealousy emerges as this way to prevent that from happening, to try and control the situation, because I feel that I can't just release the grip. I can't just be, because I'm not enough as I am. And I need to make sure that my partner doesn't find out about that. They don't realize that. And certainly that they don't get the opportunity to trade up if I think that that's always a looming threat. So we can see that there are a lot of really tender fears that sit underneath jealousy. And that's why it's so important to actually dig a little and try and be compassionate, because this stuff runs really deep. And if we just shame ourselves and go like, oh, I'm so whatever, why am I like this? I need to stop being like this. And when we're already feeling so unworthy, so not enough, so insecure that we think that an attractive person that our partner passes on the street is a threat to everything in our relationship, that is a very, very vulnerable way to be in a relationship, and not the good kind of vulnerability. Vulnerable in the sense of so fragile. It's little wonder that if that's how we're operating, that we feel so shaky, we feel so anxious all the time, because we are so primed to see and perceive threats everywhere we look. And now I think when we are operating from those subconscious scripts and subconscious beliefs around jealousy, or maybe not even subconscious, maybe they're very front of mind for you, that I'm not good enough, I'm not attractive enough, I can't trust in my relationship, it doesn't feel sturdy enough for me to just believe that my partner actually values me, loves me, wants me, chooses me. my partner's going to leave me at a moment's notice. Like all of those beliefs can drive a lot of our so-called anxious attachment behaviors, our maybe not so healthy relationship behaviors. So things like social media stalking, things like maybe snooping through your partner's phone if you are really jealous and you're hypervigilant about that colleague, and what are their emails to each other like, and do I need to monitor for the tone in those emails? Is that flirtation? Is it all of those things, right? And our anxious parts go like, you need to gather information because there are threats here, and I know there are threats here, and I need to go hunting for them. Some of the other behaviors that can come from jealousy are like incessant reassurance seeking. So asking someone like, do you love me? Do you love her? Do you find her attractive? Why did you and your ex break up? Are you sure you don't have feelings for her? These patterns of questioning and reassurance seeking that never really scratch the itch. And I think that is so often the case with anxious attachment. It's so hard to take it in because if you fundamentally don't believe that your partner loves you and is choosing you, and you're always testing and you're always moving the goalposts, you can never take it in because you just don't believe it. And you're always looking for more evidence that it's not true, or that it's going to be taken away, or that something bad is going to happen. I think that can get you in a real loop of seeking that reassurance only to not take it in. And then your partner feels a bit like, what are we doing here? What's the point? Nothing I say is enough to alleviate your fears. I don't know why you don't trust me. And that can obviously be very exhausting for a partner and kind of exhausting for a relationship to be in that kind of cycle. Now, again, I just want to emphasize that I'm not so much talking about situations where there are genuine breaches of trust going on. There are genuine causes for concern. I'm talking more about where jealousy arises from that low self-worth place within us and drives all of these behaviors when maybe there's not much to it. It is more in the form of paranoia and fear rather than a rational response to something that is going on that is not okay. I think another really interesting branch off the tree when it comes to the jealousy conversation is feeling like you are not a priority. And so feeling jealous of anyone and anything. So it can extend beyond people, and you can be jealous of a partner's work or hobbies or things that they spend time on that aren't you. And I think this could almost be a whole episode in and of itself. In fact, I'm sure it could be, because I think it's something we don't talk enough about, how anxiously attached people constantly feel like they are not enough of a priority in their partner's life. And so they fight for their place, and they feel like they have to earn their place in someone's life and work really hard for that. And so they perceive all of these other things, whether it is like work or other people, friends, as their competitors again. That I kind of need to be scrambling, elbowing these other people out of the way and convincing you that you should want to spend time with me and not them. And so I think jealousy can come up when we feel hurt or rejected or neglected in a relationship. And it's this sense of why don't you want to spend time with me? Why aren't I good enough? Why isn't spending time with me the thing that you want to do above everything else? Because I put you above everything else, and I think that's the right thing to do in a relationship, is to put you above everything else. So the fact that you don't necessarily reciprocate that or mirror that to the same degree must mean that you don't love me the way I love you, and that makes me feel hurt, rejected, less than. And so that's a really, really common one. I actually hear this a lot from people in the context of often women who are dating men who have children from a previous relationship and feeling that they rank way down the list in terms of priorities in spending time together, that the person they're seeing puts their kids first and maybe even their ex first and work and all of these things. And because they're busy and they're being pulled in many directions, people feeling like, I don't know where I stand with you because there are so many things ahead of me in the queue, and I'm always feeling like I'm just waiting around for any opportunity to spend time with you. And that's not something that you're really actively prioritizing, and that can really touch at some of our most sensitive wounds and feelings of not being good enough, of not being, if I were more something, then you would want to spend time with me. You would make me a priority. And so I try and prove my worth. I try and strive for a place in your life. And oftentimes in doing so, I just feel like a failure. I feel nothing I do is enough for you to make me a priority. And so even though we wouldn't necessarily think of that as a jealousy thing, I think jealousy can arise in that kind of setting because we get jealous of even a partner's kids from a previous relationship or a partner's ex if they're communicating with them even just functionally about co-parenting, or a partner's friends or people they play golf with or whatever. It can feel like all of these people rank ahead of me. What would it take for me to be higher on the list? And so we can feel really envious and jealous of all of those things that are taking our partner away from us when all we want is to be close. So all of that is painting the picture of how jealousy can look and where it can come from, and the various permutations and expressions of jealousy that anxiously attached people will often experience in relationships, and some of the behaviors that can spring from it that maybe then feed these shame cycles of I'm feeling really insecure and so I behave in these ways that then I shame myself for, that then leads me to feel more insecure, and then on and on I spiral into that loop of kind of berating myself for not being more secure, but that insecurity then feeds all of the behaviors that make me shame myself more. So what do we do with all of this? I think, as I said earlier, the remedy can depend a little on the specifics of the situation. Sometimes we need to have a conversation with someone. Maybe there are boundaries that need to be clarified. Maybe we need to advocate more for what we want and need in a relationship. But I think oftentimes, in fact, almost always, your experience of jealousy will be at least somewhat alleviated by focusing on building self-worth. Because I think that underpinning all of those expressions of jealousy is a feeling of unworthiness, and I am not enough. And so I have to prove myself to you so that you don't leave me, reject me, so that you want me more, so that you choose me, so that you show up for me. But I'm making whatever's going on out there a me problem, and I'm feeding this story that I have to prove myself. So when I can really heal that at the root within myself and build genuine self-confidence and genuine self-esteem so that I can stand firm in like, I know who I am and I'm comfortable in who I am. And I don't think that something as fleeting and innocuous as like an attractive person in a restaurant, I don't feel threatened by that. That has nothing to do with me or my relationship. I say this again as someone who absolutely used to see those threats everywhere and feel genuinely destabilized by them. Noticing things like, is my partner looking at that person? Oh, is this colleague a threat? Is that person in the extended friendship group a threat? All of these things, it was just such hypersensitivity to anyone and anything that I thought could be a source of danger to me and my relationship that already felt so fragile. So I really understand this, and I can guarantee you that when you learn to really embody sincere self-confidence and really actually learning to like yourself, never mind learning to love yourself, I think that can come later, but just focusing on, can I really hand on heart say like I'm comfortable with who I am and I like myself? I think that jealousy falls away. It just feels less relevant. It feels way less acute. It's not something that occupies so much of your mental and emotional energy because you really start to trust in your relationships. And I think your relationships start to be healthier and more balanced so that you're not constantly scrambling for someone's attention. And I think your ability to see a relationship for what it is and go, is this aligned? Or am I asking for something from someone who's never going to be able to give it to me? So I think that like it all bleeds out and ripples out into a healthier and more balanced way of being in relationship. And I think jealousy is not one that we then need to solve as a standalone issue in isolation, because I do find that it naturally softens as a result of working on building self-worth and being more comfortable in who we are. So I hope that that's been helpful and has given you something to think about if you are someone who struggles a lot with jealousy and envy and comparison. Please know that it is nothing to be ashamed of. It really is completely human. Like jealousy is something every single one of us has experienced. Envy too. I think we can have, as I said, like all these really heavy negative connotations attached to these emotions, but they're just emotions like any other. The more that we can look at them with compassion and a degree of neutrality, the more we can see it for what it is and go, okay, what's really going on for me here? And how might I support myself to feel a little more grounded so that I don't feel like I'm at the mercy of these spirals that I can get into around jealousy and comparison and feeling so insecure and unstable in myself and my relationships. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I really hope that this has been helpful. A reminder again about the Secure Self Challenge, which is kicking off in a couple of weeks' time. And if you haven't already checked out my free training on how to heal anxious attachment and finally feel secure in life and love, that is a great free option as well if you want to go deeper on some of the themes that we talked about here today. Okay, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you again next time.